Well, a man who needs no introduction joins us now. It's Senator Jeff Sessions, Republican from Alabama, the ranking Republican on the Senate Budget Committee. And I want to start, Senator, with the news that the Gang of Six talks appear to have collapsed or at least taken a break. Is this the end of the Gang of Six, and do you view that as a positive development?
Well, it may not be a final end of it, but I always felt that it was unlikely that they could hold together with a firm agreement that others would accept. They had a good shot at it. They ran at it. But there's some fundamental disagreements about the size and scope of government. Some people here believe we ought to raise taxes and keep government high, and others believe we can reduce spending and keep government smaller. So this is a fundamental difference, and it's hard to bridge that gap at times.
Senator, given those fundamental differences that really, didn't seem like there was much chance of everybody coming to some agreement, do you think this was a waste of time?
Well, no, I thought it was possible, but I was one of those who said at the beginning that the budget process should be ongoing, that we couldn't just sit here and wait on the Gang of Six to solve our problems. We're the members of the Budget Committee. So the Budget Committee is supposed to have produced a budget by April 15th. We've not yet had a hearing. We've not even begun to mark up a budget in the Senate. It's 749 days since the Congress has passed a budget at a time when this country has never faced a more serious financial crisis. So I think the regular order I've always felt should go forward, and I'm concerned that we're not doing so.
And do you view this as you can put a nail in this coffin and then say we can finally move on? This gives you the breathing room you need to say, okay, let's get back to the regular process?
Well, Senator Conrad, our budget chairman, was a member of the Gang of Six, but I do think he's got to consider when to begin a markup of a budget. And I think the problem is our Democratic colleagues, they have the majority. They can pass a budget by a simple majority. They can't put a budget together that the American people will accept and their members will accept, apparently. Otherwise, we should see it, and it would have seen it already.
So what type of timeline are we looking at, Senator? Now that we can say, we'll put this aside and get back to the budget process with the Budget Committee, what's going to happen?
Well, we should absolutely move before the Memorial Day recess and get this thing moving, and it's still got to be brought to the floor of the Senate and still got to conference with the House. Some think that can't be done, but we need a budget, and I think that it can be done. It's just going to be a tough battle. We need to be out there. People need to be talking about, do you want to increase taxes? Do you want to cut spending? How much and where? And be open about it. Right now it's been in secret meetings, keeping senators really from having to express their own views to the public.
So, Senator, this can get wrapped up by the Memorial Day recess? That's 10 days away?
Well, it's possible. We need to have it out of the committee and have committee hearings. You hear rumors that maybe there won't be a committee hearing. That would be unthinkable to me, that we would go another year without a budget at a time when our country is facing its most severe long-term debt crisis.
Senator, as you know, on Monday, the Treasury Department announced that we have reached and now exceeded our statutory debt limit. Although there's lots of patchwork that can be done that gets us as far as the beginning of August. What's the deadline in your mind? Is there a date certain where you say, if we don't act by this point, then we have a real problem on our hands? Should we be getting up close to this August 2nd or so deadline where Secretary Geithner has said that real chaos could ensue?
Well, the President and Secretary Geithner are sort of creating this preemptive strike that you've got to pass the debt limit sooner rather than later. But the truth is they need to come forward with an agreement that can reduce spending, balance the budget, cap spending, maybe a constitutional amendment to balance the budget. Those kind of things need to be agreed to and move forward now, and then we won't be reaching a deadline. And as far as the credit markets are concerned, I think they'll respond well if they believe Congress is very serious about reducing our deficits. It's the deficits ultimately that cause the people to lose confidence in America and lose confidence in buying our bonds.
Senator, we've been talking all about that May deadline of reaching the debt ceiling. Now we're talking about August because of some moves that the Treasury Department did to keep things floating with this emergency funding. Do you think that did maybe more harm than good, in the sense, not obviously with the economy, but in the sense of getting Congress's backs up against the wall and forcing something to get done?
Well, I think the Secretary had to be honest about that. It was always disputed that it had to be done by May, and I don't think that was accurate. So now he's given us an accurate date, but you are correct that responsible Congress and a responsible White House and Democratic Senate have to come forward and acknowledge that business as usual cannot continue, and they're going to make some changes, else they're not going to get a debt limit or ceiling increase. American people know that we are so irresponsible that we need to change some of the ways we're doing business.
Senator, one question on another committee you serve, on the Judiciary Committee. There's a big vote that's looming for Goodwin Liu's nomination for a judgeship. You're talking about denying cloture on this, supporting a filibuster. Why is that? I mean, you've been very critical of the judicial filibuster when it was Democrats using it. This is a man who's backed by Ken Starr, by John Yoo and others. Why is this something that you're talking about filibustering?
Well, first of all, Republicans did not filibuster, and I never filibustered until President Bush started nominating judges, and then there was systematic filibusters against a host of his nominees. Finally resulted in a gang of 14, you remember, reaching an agreement which basically said, we're not going to filibuster unless there's an extraordinary circumstances. I think with regard to President Obama, this would be the second person subjected to a filibuster. The extraordinary circumstances are clear. He's never tried a case. He's very inexperienced. He's a very liberal, progressive, activist lawyer who believes in a vision of the role of a judge that's contrary to the great American heritage, that a judge is an independent adjudicator of disputes and is not one that allows their personal political views to be part of their decision-making process. He's the most activist nominee I think we've seen by far. That's pretty much a consensus of the Republican members of the Judiciary Committee.
All right, Senator Jeff Sessions, Republican from Alabama, thanks for being here on Top Line. Appreciate it.